Okay, here just a little bit more in Zechariah here. Zechariah 7 is part 2. Zechariah 7, 13 and 14. And it happened, just as he had called, but they didn't listen. So they will call out, and I will not listen, says Yahweh Zevot. I will cause them to be storm-tossed among the nations they didn't know. So we look at human history and say, what a rotten project this turned out to be. How'd it go for you, big shot? You have to send a flood and kill them all? You tell Moshe, step back, I'm going to kill them all? You're going to do it again? I mean, you killed everybody in Sodom and Gomorrah? I mean, you real nice project you got going on here, humanity on the face of the earth. No, but see, it's all about listening to his voice. Because our ancestors, our forefathers, refused to listen to his voice, storm-tossed among the nations. You look at world history, it's nothing but wars and people building castles and empires and taking over other people and killing everybody. It's like, what? Didn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way in front of us. Zechariah 8:6, thus said Yahweh's vote, just as it will be wondrous, that's the word, the root of the word paleo, yod, paleo, aleph, in the eyes of the remnant of the people, hey Zion, hey, this in their days. And it's like, what? You were storm-tossed, everything came crashing down, the world's been nothing but hell on wheels. But when I turn it around and give you what I promised your ancestors to give you if they would just listen to me and walk my ways, just as that will be wondrous, paleo, in your eyes, he goes on to say, also, in my eyes, wait a minute, he is looking forward to the day that we listen to him and do what he says so he can change all this. He's looking forward to it as a great treasured occasion. Zechariah 8:7. Thus says, so Kurt, this is page 7 of the date 12:11. Thus says Yahweh of old, behold, I am saving my people from the land of the east. That's Mezerach. Zion Rashket is the sunrise bursting. It's the word for phosphorus. It's illuminated. And from the land of the where the sun goes, and then Mem Betvav Aleph. Betvav Aleph is to arrive. So the place it arrives. So to watch the sun sink into the west, the place it arrives. So where enters the sun, Zechariah 8:8, and I will bring them, and they will dwell within Jerusalem. And it will be for me as a people. Ve'ani ehye. That's the word I am. Aleph nun yod, Aleph he yod he. And they will be for me a people. And I am for them Elohim in truth and in righteousness. But Zadikah is not just righteousness, it's victory, deliverance, and salvation. So he's telling us here that he has this vision. Though I scattered them across the face of the earth, from east to west, I'm going to gather them back. When? What do we have to do? We talked about last week. Seize my covenant. Listen to my voice. Guard my Shabbat. Seek what I desire. Bakash chafatzi. Well, there's 4 verbs. What are the other ones? Zechariah 8:19. That he talks about these different fasts of the different months will be for the house of Judah for joy and gladness, not starve yourself and remember the horrors of the past. La Shashon, exaltation. Vela Shemeach, rejoicing. Vela Ma'adim, appointed times of feasting. Tovim, good. Va Emet, truth. Veha Shalom, peace. Ahavo, loving them. Exaltation, rejoicing. feasting, good, truth, peace, love. Has that been happening yet? That should be upon us. And yet none of this has to do with remembering baby Jesus. What the heck? It's remembering what Yahweh said, remembering his covenant. Zechariah 7:9, judge with truthful justice, perform kindness and mercy towards one another. Don't oppress the widow, the orphan, the stranger, the poor. Do not think in your hearts to wrong one another. He gives us a list of 4 things to do, to be about the action. Just believe. No, it's not just believe. It's because you believe. Do these 4 things. Zechariah 7:9, judge with truthful justice. Perform kindness and mercy towards one another. That's with intent. Be kind. Not saying I always am. Been accused of not. Too bad for me. Gosh darn it. Don't oppress the widow, orphan, stranger, and poor. Do not think in your hearts to wrong one another. Well, I'm not. That word think is chet shin bet, calculate, an ingenious device. It's like, hey, let's figure out a way to get that guy. Don't do that. We all could probably be more kind. I could be more kind, but, well, that's something to be worked on. Okay, so then we jumped ahead into like in Zechariah 6, he's talking about 4 chariots. Zechariah 5, he sees this scroll flying. Michael Rood did a talk about that. Zechariah 4, you've got these 2 olive trees and the menorah, and it's like, what the heck is going on? Those are, I'm just saying, these 3 chapters there are rather strange. And then Zechariah 3, there's 7 eyes toward one stone. Behold, I'm engraving its adornment. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. Get to Zechariah 3:7. If you holocaust, now there's things to do. If you holocaust my derek, walk my way. If you shamar, what is to be shamarred? If you guard what I told you to guard. If you deem my bet, if you determine my house, if you judge my house, if you determine my instructions of my house, and if you shamar my chet zadi resh, which I believe is the word for courtyard, if you like a courtier or like a janitor whose job is to maintain this place being kept within this space. Then we touched on Zechariah 2, 2:12, whoever touches you pokes a pupil of his own eye. Zechariah 2:15, many nations will join themselves to Yahuwah on that day. Has that happened yet? And they will become a people to me, and I will dwell in your midst. He's not going to take up residence in a box in a tent. Within each of us, Zechariah 2:16, Yahweh will take Yehudah as his heritage. Has that happened yet? Zechariah 2:4, with the 4 carpenters, we talked about that. Zechariah 1:3, return to me and I return to you. Zechariah 1:14, I have become zealous for Jerusalem and Zion, a great zeal. Is Yahweh becoming jealous of that plot of land? The word Jerusalem, he's become zealous for Jerusalem. Jerusalem literally means the promised inheritance. So for him to say, listen, we're burning time. We got thousands of years going by. It's been 6,000 years at least since Adam, depending on who's reckoning the generations. And he says, I promised my people that I would do certain things for them, and none of them are stepping up to the plate and doing what I asked them to do. And we've gone through 6,000 years now. And yeah, in the days of David, I was able to show a little bit of what I was going to do, but I said it would be better. And what's up with these guys? I really am looking forward to being their Elohim and them my people, but they got to do what I say. I just want them to do what I say. See, the word Zion, Zadi Yod Vav Nun, means to do what Yahweh commanded. Zadi Vav is his command, so Zadi Yod is my command, and the Vav Nun suffix is one who's doing what I commanded. And that's the one who gets the inheritance. But if we're not even told there's an inheritance to be gotten because all we're looking forward to is the rapture and the tribulation and the end of the world, then we're not going to be about the business of doing what he said, because there's no hope. There's no looking forward to him resolving something which hasn't been resolved yet. It's just a logical process. Okay, so here we're going to page 1, dated 12/25/22, which is today, and they got this list, treasures in heaven. How do you get treasures in heaven? Like my friend said, he's never heard anybody discuss it. I don't know that I've necessarily heard anybody discuss it if I look back my whole life. But what if, just consider the possibility, what if Yahweh said, regard my Sabbaths? And what? Sit down on the Sabbath day. Now, he didn't say this is how you store up a treasure in heaven, but what if he said, every Sabbath day that you, because I told you to, because I asked you to, because I commanded you to, you don't work, you sit, you dwell, you sleep, you remain, you Shabbat. You know, ever play the game of Monopoly? You know, you go around the board, and even if you get beat up landing on other people's properties or you don't accomplish much, whew, every time you go around Go, you get $200. Whoa, boy, you stay in the game and can do something for another round. What if every time you keep Shabbat, ding, ka-ching, you get a treasure in heaven? You get a treasure in heaven for every Shabbat. If people could appropriate a very real value, do you think they do what he said? But we don't do what he says because they know value in doing it. That's what Malachi 3:16 was saying. People said, where's the value? Where's the benefit in doing anything Yahweh said? The wicked, those who disregard him, seem to prosper. Yahweh said, oh, you'll see later. You'll see. You'll definitely see, because I'm going to make sure that it happens. What? To do what he said. Well, if we knew that to keep Shabbat in the here and now would tend the garden of life in our mind. Greg just put up a little statement, heaven is in your head. If the tree of life is in our mind, and every Shabbat that we keep from desecrating, two different commands, is watering, is nurturing the tree of life in our mind and our sanity and our relationship with him, would that be reason enough to do what he said? Okay, so here's this list that I came up with of just right off the top of my head, things he said to do. Shamar, Shabbat. Guard what I said to guard. What did he say to guard? He started to guard Shabbat, a few other things, but watch what I said to watch. Keep my Shabbat. He also said to listen to my voice. Shema, Koli. Seek my desire. Bakash Chafatzi. Take hold strongly. The word kufchet is to take hold. Strong as chazak. My covenant. He said, take hold of my covenant. Seize my covenant with a strong grip. Koch briti chazak. Halakah haderek yeshar ana. Walk the straight derek, the straight path, humbly. Micah 6:8. Do justly, love mercy, walk humbly with your Elohim. Oh, well, wait a minute. Walk humbly with your Elohim. Walk the straight path, the yeshar derek. But then to do justly, that's asha mishvat, and love mercy, that's two other verbs, is ahava chesed. And remember Abraham. Abraham believed or was faithful as a skilled artisan, educated. That's amunah, to believe or have faith, or to be a faithful, skilled, trained artisan. But he said, righteousness shall you pursue. So the word to pursue, remember we talked about as a bear, with a bear claw, dalet bet kuf. So debach zadika, pursue righteousness. Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Yahweh, to be happy in Yeshua. Betoch ve obed. Obed is obey, but it's also worship. Trust with confidence. And like what I just said at the tail end of the previous hour, he said that the level, the appearance, the strain of confidence that we have is what determines our regard, his regard of us, the nation's regard of us. If we you see pictures that people have taken with their cameras of, a little chihuahua barking at a big dog or a moose or a little terrier against a mountain lion. It's like, wow, gosh, our attitude of confidence in Yahweh against our adversaries changes everything. We got to know that. We got to believe that. We got to realize that's what he built into the system. And if we cower because of the fierce threats of our enemy, it's almost like we're worthless to him. Sameach, rejoicing. Kuf vav is to hope. But there's another word that has to do with foresee and expect, which is zadi pei hey, zafa, which is the word for watchman, or to be vigilant, watching with hope and expectation, confidently trusting in the reality. Ask, quest, spy out. Shin aleph lamed, bet ayin, tav resh, bakash, bet kuf shin. You have not because you ask not. Quest, seek. Make it your proactive purpose, agenda, effort. Seek out what? Where do you look? I'll tell you, looking in the language, looking in the scripture is a perfect place to look. And if you can find some other place to look, go for it. But man, you could have your nose in this book and be accomplishing this. And you can be an invalid, or you can be only half energized or half crazy and still take the resources you have left, regardless of your age, regardless of your finances, regardless of the circumstances around you. You can be doing these matters present tense. And I'm suggesting it's the act of storing up treasures in heaven to do these things. Give thanks, Hadullah Yahweh. Bachar Chaim, choose life. And these things are not a list like, okay, I'm doing that, I'm doing that, I'm doing that, okay, I've did this. It's not like a to-do list of accomplish these tasks. These are a status of intrinsic integrity, the essence of your being as a continuum. Vayikra, assemble, learn to read. Kadosh, be his set-apart, sacred betrothed. Yehi gadol gabor la Yahweh, exist spectacular, heroic unto Yahweh. Be his champion hero that he's been waiting for all these centuries, all these generations. Be that one that he's not been able to find and was rather disgusted with our ancestors for the sake of not seeing them. Lamed, learn, study, teach, rehearse. Kumi ori, arise, shine, my light. Rise up, cause his light to be manifest as if we were the menorah, and the menorah is not, the light's not put under a bushel, but it's made to radiate his life. Zadi Aleph, or Zadi Vav Aleph, Pari, publish my fruit, export my fertility. Then Chet, Shin, Bet, think, calculate, consider. That word for arithmetic, ingenious device. So there's the list. Okay, Malachi 3:20. Now, I hadn't intentionally looked at these, but I was trying to sum up, getting to the end of Malachi. There's 3 chapters in Malachi. That's the end of the collection of the books of the 12 minor prophets. And it's like, okay, so there's just a few verses here. Malachi 3:20. And I don't know that I've necessarily analyzed these verses before, but this was looking at these yesterday. So here. Vav, Zion Resh Het Hey. Well, Zion Resh Het Zerach. Barry and Baya Segal did a song, Kumiori, Keva Zerach. What are they saying? They're singing in Hebrew, and you don't arise, shine, your light has come. They're 20 years ago when we first heard them, it's like, oh boy, how refreshing to hear them singing in Hebrew. And then there's some English, and there's simple songs of just a couple verses, the Hebrew and English, They refused to use Yahweh's name, unfortunately. But anyway, that's one of their songs. Shema Israel and Go Through the Gates are these two albums, which I thought were wonderful. Anyway, this word Zerach means east or ancient, some synonym with Kedem, Kuf Dalet Mem, but it means shine, radiant, and the word phosphorus. Unto you, Lakam, Yod Resh Aleph Yod. Well, Yod Resh Aleph is the fear, honor, reverence. Resh Aleph Yod is the word sight, exhibition, or mirror. You who are allowed to have this exhibition of understanding, and so you have this fear of the spectacular regard. My Shem, Shemi, Shin Mem Yod. How many people have never known even had a name? Like, remember, I've mentioned before about Cedar and Sage singing group did that song Cecil's Hallelujah, and one of the graphics they put up is these majestic cathedrals and ornamented churches, and it's like, why didn't you tell me he had a name? For us to realize not only that he has a name, what is it? Well, it's sacred 4 letters that the Jews aren't allowed to say, but it's Shem is name, fame, renown, reputation, the occupation of all your concerns. It's what you're about, which is essentially the 22-letter alphabet. It's all that stuff. It's his covenant with Israel. That's his Shem. The Son of Righteousness will arise with healing in his wings. That's what it says. But the word for son, Shin Mem Shin, diligent servant, industrious at task as assigned. And Zadokah is righteousness, but it's also justice, victory, and salvation. So it's like, wait a minute, those who see that my name isn't just, oh, I know the meaning of the sacred 4 letters, but it means to then be a diligent servant. And the word servant is not just Shemesh, but it's also Obed, worship. To worship him in spirit and in truth. To be about the business of doing righteousness like he said. Not just believing, doing righteousness. How do you do righteousness? The next word, Vav Mem Pei, or Resh Pei Aleph. Well, Resh Pei Aleph is healing. But it also, Mem, Resh Pei Hey, means weak and loosened or neglected. Mem, Resh Pei Aleph, Mem is the place of, so it's a clinic, to go to a clinic of healing. Mem, Resh Pei Aleph is also cure. Well, the Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in his wings. It sounds like poetry. It sounds like some kind of metaphor. But how do you make it tangible? The word in Nun Pei Yod Hey. Be Kanaf Ia. Well, Kanaf, that's wings, but wing is Kaf Nun Pei, like Nun Pei. Well, Nun Pei is a treetop, and if you look at Nun Vav Pei, it means to sift, to swing something back and forth, like you're winnowing, like you're throwing grain up in the air, to wave. Bet Kaf Nun, this is Bet Kaf Nun, Bekan Thea, Pei Yod is my mouth expressing. So to treetops swaying in the breeze, to fan. Pei Kaf Nun is a piston, a pestle, a fruit nub, like the navel on an orange, a protuberance. Bet Kaf Hey is weeping, like Rebecca. This is Bet Kaf Nun. It's like expressing a piston. That's in an engine. That's the powerful stroke of the engine. A pestle, that's the thing you raise up to smash down. So it's putting something into moving effect. The clinic of putting something to effect. Vav Yod Zadi Aleph Tav Mem, exporting or publishing. Vav Peshin Tav Mem. Peshin Tav is a word for flax or linen. Tav Mem means they, their. Pish. My mom used to say, pish tosh. You know, she didn't realize she was speaking Hebrew. That means crazy, haughty, folly, jumping around like crazy. Peshin, pish, pish means search, examine, investigate, delouse, and nitpick. And then it says from the cough, like Ayin Gimel Lamed Yod is Ogel, which means calf, fat, round, circle, coach or chariot, and then Mem Resh Bet Kuf. Resh Bet Kuf means the place that you've been tied, the place that you've been held up, or a team. You're yoked to being with a team, like Team Yahweh being pinned down on Shabbat. So the Mem, the prefix of Resh Bet Kuf, is the stall or the pen. So what he says is, the Son of Righteousness will arise with healing his wings, and you will go out to frolic, Peshatam, like a calf from the stall. Or you could say, the people who sit down on Shabbat and recover, tending, watering the tree of life in the garden, when Yahweh himself takes out our enemies. It goes on to say, you'll walk on the wicked like dust, like ashes under your feet. When the time comes, just like he said, we'll go out frolicking like a fattened calf in the stall where he's kept us safe, because we listened to what he said to do. We searched and examined and then did what he said. And that's where the protection was. Malachi 3:16. Then at that time, see, that was 3:20, so this is just a few verses before. Then at that time, noon, Dalet Bet Resh. Well, Dalet Bet Resh is to speak. Nadab, like Nadab and Abihu, Aaron's two sons that were killed in the first day of the tabernacle, means volunteer and philanthropy. So noon, Dalet Bet Resh is to speak, to volunteer to speak, you might say. Do willingly, Yod, Resh, Aleph, Yod. Yod, Resh, Aleph is fear. Resh, Aleph, Yod is to mirror or to see or have on exhibition. Then the next word is Yahweh. So to see Yahweh's words, to choose to be in fearful regard and honoring his words. Then it says, Ish al Resh Ayin He Vav, man to his neighbor, associate, or man lead, guide. Remember, Resh Ayin means to lead, guide, shout, noise, thoughts, like Yom Teruah. It's the word for Teruah. And Yahweh listened and heard. So this is Malachi 3:16. This is that verse. Then at that time, the men who volunteered to fear Yahweh, in other words, what else you got going on? I don't know. Well, are you afraid of God? Why am I afraid of him? God's love. That's not the same thing as Yirah Yahweh. To say, listen, I want to be a person who has an accurate, worthy, fearful honor, reverence, regard of Yahuwah, the mysterious Elohim that nobody really knows, but that I see revealed himself in these 22 letters. So I'm going to make it my purpose to comprehend these letters, these words, this covenant, this people Israel, and say, I'm going to be there and do that. I'm going to make that my life mission with serious, proactive intent, voluntarily. And Yahuwah himself goes, what? What's up with that? And he listened and he heard and he paid attention. And he says, quick, grab a ketubah and write a sefer, write the book of remembrance, Zakaron, in his presence. A remembrance in his presence is like to keep in mind Lamed, belonging to Yod, Resh, Aleph, Yod, those who have this type of regard. And who chet, shin, bet, that's that word, the last verb I mentioned, count, accounting, figure out, sum up, think, calculate, esteem, attach importance to, and consider. Those are the dictionary definitions of het, shin, bet. Shamo, his name. So those who say, I don't know how to do it, but I'm going to attach importance to his name. Okay, that's what it means. Gematria, assigning numbers, value to the letters. Well, you could do that. Calculate, esteem, figure out his name. Well, if you don't know that he has his name, you can't figure out his name. To figure out he has 4 letters, why those letters? What is Yod Vav He? What is Aleph He Yod He? What is Aleph Nun Yod? What is Aleph Tav Yod? It's this study of figuring out his name. That's exactly to calculate and think and attach importance to figuring out his name is what he listens and hears and attends and says, write down their names. Verse 17, the verse following. This is interesting. And it exists as mine for me, declares Yahweh Zavot. Leyom asher ani asa. On the day that I am appointed, accomplished, perform, that's ayin shin he, make, do, produce, cause, bring about. On the day that I bring about, on the day that I appoint, on the appointed day, sagala. Sagula is the word, samek gimel lamed he, means violet, treasure, possession, acquire, specific, best choice. It's also a cluster of grapes. Segula is a cluster of grapes. So in Sukkot, you have decoration of cluster of grapes. Why? Well, because it's the harvest time. The word cluster of grapes is segula. It's also purple or violet. It also means specific, best, my choice, treasure. And it's those who attend to Yahweh's Shem, his business, his regard of his Shabbat, his Moedim, those who keep Sukkot are doing that. And so that cluster of grapes you have as decoration is actually a reminder to you that that's what you are to him. You are his cluster of violet grapes, his Segula treasure. And then this next word, Vav, Chet Mem Lamed Tav Yod. Het Mem Lamed means fitted, adapted, conformed. No, wait a minute, excuse me. That's the word for Segula, is fitted, adapted, and conformed. The word Het Mem Lamed means pity, compassion, or spare. And he says, those people who do what I said to do, who fit, adapt, and conformed to my peculiar heart, way, mind, ruach, I will raise them up like a man having pity, compassion, or sparing a son who serves him. The son who serves him. Shemesh, Obed, serve him by doing what he said. So to have as an established doctrine, we only believe, we don't have to do anything. I'm sorry, you've excused yourself from the group of being his cluster of grapes. Malachi 3:1 and 3:2. Let me jump ahead to Malachi 2:7. We mentioned this last week, just real quick. For the lips of the Cohen should safeguard knowledge. That's something to do. Safeguard knowledge? What's knowledge? Knowledge of any subject, but specifically the knowledge of Yahweh's subject. And people should seek teaching Torah from his mouth. For he is the agent, Malach, the angel, you could say, of Yahweh Zavot. Verse 8, Malachi 2:8. But you have veered from the path. You have caused many to stumble through teaching. You have corrupted the covenant of Levi. Levi means attached to me. So the covenant which was supposed to attach my people to me, you guys have corrupted by profaning its regard. So every time you hear a sermon that either avoids talking about walking in Yahweh's ways or says the law is a terrible thing that never did work, it was only given as punishment. Fortunately for us, it was nailed to the cross, done away with. Whew, we don't need no stinking Torah no more. That's Malachi 2:7, 8, and 9. Therefore, likewise, in reciprocal mirror action, I have made you repulsive and lowly to all the people, talking about his priests, his Kohanim. Because you do not observe my ways and you show favoritism in Torah, or you pick and choose what you're going to tell people. It's like every time you hear a sermon from somebody who says that the Torah is a worthless old covenant that had no benefit to anybody, that was only served or given to us as a punishment for the golden calf incident, is an ignorant lie causing trouble, and they're going to be reduced in value to the value that they give the Torah. So for us to say, well, at least let's then talk about and play up and give a high regard, a shining radiance of glory to his ways, his Shem, his name, his Torah. That's what we should be doing. That's what we're doing. Okay, here, Malachi on page 3, Kurt, of what I sent you today in the notes is Malachi 3:1 and 3:2 and then 3:3. So I was working on this last night. Now, I didn't plan this. I've not looked at this ever before. In fact, I'm going to read it in Stones to Knock, Malachi 3. This is the last chapter of Malachi, and the Malachi in the English Bible, Malachi is the last book of the Old Testament before you have the white page and jumps into Matthew. Here in Stones to Knock, you've still halfway through the Old Testament. But here, I'm going to read these first 3 verses. And I didn't plan this for today. I didn't have any agenda. I'm not trying to push any thinking, but I'll just read you what I found. It's just pretty astounding. Stones to Knock translation of Malachi 3, verses 1, 2, and 3. Behold, I'm sending my messenger, and he will clear a path before me. Suddenly, the Lord whom you seek will come to his sanctuary, and the messenger of the covenant for whom you yearn, behold, he comes, says Hashem, master of legions, or Yahweh Zavot. Verse 2, who can bear the day of his coming, and who can survive when he appears? For he will be like the smelter's fire and like the launderer's soap. Verse 3, he will sit smelting and purifying silver. He will purify the children of Levi and refine them like gold and like silver, and they will be for Yahweh presenters of offerings in righteousness. If Yeshua died on the cross so we don't have to present offerings anymore, then is this something of the past or is this something of the future? Why will the sons of Levi have to be presenting offerings? Verse 4, then the offering of Judah and Jerusalem will be pleasing to Yahweh as in the days of old and in previous years. As in days of old and previous years. So he's going to restore something from the ancient past, but with Yeshua on the scene, why would he have to do that? So when is this talking about? I will draw near to you for judgment. We talked about this verse last week. And I will be a swift witness against. These are the guys that are in big trouble. Sorcerers, adulterers, those who swear falsely, those who extort the wage of the worker, the widow, the orphan, and against those who wrong the stranger and do not fear me, says Yahweh Zavot. For I, Yahweh, have not changed, and you, sons of Jacob, you have not perished. Or as I said last week, another way to read that is, you don't seem to understand. What don't you get? You don't get it. Okay, that's Malachi 3. Then he goes on, since the days of your forefathers, you have veered away from my laws. You have not observed them. Return to me, and I will return to you, says Yahweh Zavot. But you say, for what? What should we repent for? Okay, then it sets up Malachi 3:16. But now I'm going to go back and I'm going to read the word-for-word translation, letter by letter, Malachi 3, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Here I am. I hereby dispatch my messenger, full of my speech to you. Just so you know, Malachi, my messenger, Mem Lamed Aleph Kaf Yod. Mem Lamed Aleph is the word that means full, complete, to be saturated. Lamed Aleph means the word no, N-O, but Lamed Kaf is to you. Mem Lamed Aleph Kaf, Yod. Yod is my messenger. So, but Mem Lamed Hey means speech or utterance. So who's he sending what's the messenger? I've given him my words to send to you. So the fact that Lamed Aleph is in the middle, meaning no or non, almost doesn't play as part of the picture of the whole. But Mem, Lamed Aleph Kaf or Lamed Kaf, but Mem Lamed Aleph and Mem Lamed Hey. So I'm just trying to show you how to analyze this word. So I could say the word messenger. He is full of my speech to you. So here I'm sending my messenger. I'm dispatching. That word dispatch is shalach, which is the same word for divorce or to banish or send away or to shoot a missile or to launch. So Yahweh says, okay, here I am. And he didn't say, behold, gladly, that which is Hannah. He says, Hineni. Abraham said, Hineni, here I am, when he heard a voice. So Yahweh is saying, okay, here we go. Here I am. I am sending my messenger, dispatching to you my full voice. Turn and look, consider, regard. Something has changed. It's become free, open, the blockage of obscurity removed, vacated roadblock, clear access. The way of my face, that which belongs to my soft, tender, delicate disposition. Suddenly, surprise! Here it is. Open it. It's exactly what you've been seeking, asking, begging, craving for. And along with it, perfect timing right now, such that you are empowered to have the capacity to contain it all, so as to prevail. The complete volume signed by the author, the pure, clear, brilliant Brit that you preserved, protected, guarded, diligently treasured the seed of for all these years. Look here, how wonderful. It's arrived. So declares Yahweh Zevot. Who's it for? Who has the capacity to comprehend the totality of what this includes? The comprehensive measure, the storehouse of all provision. The day has happened, as appointed, the day upon which all others lean. Reminds me of what Christmas used to be. The spectacular exhibition of perceiving the oath symbolized by the alphabet letters. Illuminated like bright, shining fire, purified, refined, accurate as specified, yet also chefed, like what a chef would do to make a gourmet, fragrant, spiced, perfumed, intoxicating, appreciable, strengthening and consolidating the engineered foundation to be gadol, festooned and majestic, noble, honored, appreciated, magnified, majestic, and splendorous. Verse 3, he will explain the return, reuniting, restored from oppression, being made pure, cleansed, like being spoon-fed from a goblet, the Holy Grail so yearned for. Cleansed and purified, Aleph Tav, my son, attached to be bonded by the force of their own intent, their own heart inflamed as one would have a lust for gold and silver, yet this will be a longing for Yahweh. Approaching the subject artistically, not so much as religious doctrine, it's kind of a picture as Esther asked the harem master Haggai what he advised her to bring, adorned to meet the king Ahasuerus. That's Esther 2:15. How are we guided to approach Yahweh clothed in righteousness? Yes, a free will gift of personal expression, yet technically exact, specified terms, his words, pleasantly acceptable to Yahweh according to the words received as praise, worthy of inheritance like days without end, like years of primordial origin. And then in the beginning, 5, he said, and then, so there, I will draw near to you for mishpat. And it's like, mishpat, balancing of scales. Listen, when he says mishpat, balancing of scales, to those who've been doing righteousness, that's an incredibly wonderful occasion where we finally get everything he's promised. It's only pekuf dalet, fear and punishment, when we've been goofing around, not doing what he said or doing evil, and the recompense comes upon us. But for him to say, I'm going to draw near to you bringing mishpat, it's like, finally, thank you. But what turned it around? Like Queen Esther, and I'm plugging that in because that's what it looks like it's saying here. The word is Magishi, Mem, Gimel, Yod, Shin, Yod. Well, Gish, if you look Gimel, Yod, Shin in the dictionary, it's like, that's where the Japanese word for geisha girl comes from. What? A geisha girl, that's where you get the word polygeesh, which is concubine. It's like, what does that got to do with approaching Yahweh? Approaching Yahweh, one of many, well, that's like King Ahasuerus had gathered up all these young girls because he had kicked out Vashti his wife, the queen, and says, one night with a king, you get one occasion to come to him, and what are you going to bring? If you could store up treasures in heaven, if you could do one thing before it's too late, what would you do? What did he say? Look at his words. He said, attend to my words. Listen to my voice and do what I asked you to do. From your heart. And approach the subject artistically. That's what geisha means. Approach me with your artistic expression in a response to my words. Well, that's what we're doing. That's what I'm trying to do, writing these words down as an interpretation or translation of everything he said. That being said, here we are at the end of this matter, and that's what Hugo was going to present, but we'll have maybe Hugo next week can do that on, I guess it'll be January 1st next week, in which case we could talk about that. Hugo, if you could get your internet up and running. The interesting thing about these verses here, it reminded me of what I used to think of Christmas Day being when I was a kid. I didn't plan that. I didn't have that intent. And yet the feeling, wow, here it is, surprise. Suddenly, here's Yahweh's gift, the access to his words. Now, we've been studying, we've been going through this for a couple of years on this Skype call. But how many people have never even seen these, haven't bumped into them, that might open up this and go, what? We can read his words? It's an astounding time, an astounding gift. And the time is now to appreciate the gift and be able to say, okay, here it is. What do we do with it? Store up treasures in heaven. Store up treasures on earth. Be his people. Do what he said. Walk in his ways. Seek what he desires. What does he desire? To listen to his voice and do what he says. Zion, obedi. Be my servant, my worshipful servant who just does what I say. If it doesn't look like what we're doing, if it looks like something more, please tell me, because it's at least got to be this, as far as I can see. Anyway, that's what I can see. So here, looks like we got at least another 10 minutes that we'll open up the microphones. You can turn on your cameras and you can say whatever you want. Anybody has something to contribute to the study here. And this is the real tail end of the package of the study of the 12 minor prophets, regardless of the title that was put on last week's talk. Anyone?
Bueller?
Hey, Gillen, you got something?
Bonjour, Eric. I'm sorry. I just got my Wi-Fi right now. We went through a big storm without internet. Anyway, internet here is quite a terrible thing. So I'm clueless. I don't know what you preached about today, but I can talk for all the last messages about the prophets.
Sure.
And I was very blessed by everything you shared, and I went back in the scripture and looked it up, and it's just an amazing hope that we have ahead of us. And I do, maybe I just see it now, or maybe it's you changing, but I do appreciate that more and more you are more black and white, saying the things as it is. And I think it's good. I think one of the biggest lies that we grew up in is that God is love. And I know saying this might be like terrible, but in a sense that there's a way to get near to him, and it's not by any ways or the way people likes, or during the feast they enjoy, but it's really according to what he's saying. So anyway, thank you for all the wonderful teaching. I just keep it, as soon as I get the Wi-Fi here, which is not often, I re-listen over and over, and I study everything. I'm very blessed. Our hope is very strong. Thank you for everything, Eric.
Well, this will be recorded on Skype, So even not waiting until Kurt gets edited, you have it up. You can always go back and listen to it. So that's a nice thing.
Yeah, indeed.
Anybody else have?
Yeah, just always enjoy on Skype and then wait for YouTube. Exactly.
Hugo, or do you have internet connection? You were going to talk today, but are you there? Anybody else? Hey, Mark.
Hi. I was on a call, so I had to hang up there for a second. But
that's okay. Do you got anything to say?
Well, as usual, like Elaine was saying, your teaching is spot on, and no matter how complicated it seems to be, it's always the same message. Obey me, keep my commandments, and I'm going to. It doesn't change. No matter you start at the first of the book or the end of the book, it's the same message throughout. You can dig as deep as you want and get as complicated as you want, but the basic message is obey my commandments. You can go past go, and each time you go past go, I'll give you a couple $100, or whatever, a couple of hundred blessings, whatever you want to call it. And I really enjoyed that particular comparison you made with that kind of board game. So no matter where I look in Scripture, and especially when you expand it for me, as you did today, in the prophets, and you've done over the past few weeks, it's just amazing to see that it's the same message given to us in different ways by different people, but it's the same message, and I really enjoy it.
Somebody has a audio running.
Wi-Fi network has.
I think that's Mark's.
Oh, there you go. Now you're muted. Is there somebody else that wanted to say something before we cut off the recording? Somebody else that wanted to even contribute one of your perspectives to the study? Anyone? Colin, you're here today. Do you got anything to say?
I have too much to say. I don't know where to begin. That was so fantastic. Am I coming through?
Yes.
I'm overwhelmed that every time we listen and we go back on this, it's more clear, and it's the Haderach, the straight path. And what a contrast with this day of the world where, I mean, like you said, we're in like a womb right now. And one day this womb will be the whole earth. And there won't be that holiday anymore. So it'll be totally reversed. And this is the beginning of it in this end time, this bookend. From what Daniel did to what you're doing, the other end of what Daniel did. Does that make sense?
I think so. I was explaining, I was talking to my older brother and saying, I realized that I probably look insane. Like, whoa, this guy's nuts, crazy. You just kind of leave him alone, and maybe he'll calm down and go away. And it's like, but I see these words, and it's like, I mentioned like this thing in Malachi 1, 2, and 3, chapter 3, verses 1, 2, and 3. It talks about he's going to send his messenger. And, is that Yeshua? And then in the end of Malachi 3, I will send Elijah the prophet right in front of that great day. And Yeshua said, if you can handle it, this John the Baptist, that's Elijah the prophet. And it's like, okay. Well, was that the great coming day of the Lord? I mean, look what happened. Yeshua is crucified and disappears, and like, 2,000 years goes by. Well, is that what is he referring to? What's Eliyah Neviah? It's like, wait a minute, that's the approach to me, Aleph, Lamed Yod. Hey, that's approaching to me as prophesied. Well, what was prophesied? Israel would return. So this, coming back to these words, fits the actual description of Elijah the prophet. That phrase, Elijah the prophet. Or I'm going to send my messenger, and I'm going to dispatch my messenger full of my speech to you, and he's going to give it to you so that you can turn and look and regard. Well, if Daniel hid this stuff, this is the turning and looking, the obfuscation, the roadblock being removed. It's like, if that's what this is, and I have the regard of this, and he's using us, he's using this Skype call, he's using this internet, he's using this occasion to say, suddenly, surprise, here it is. That's what you've been waiting for. It's like, I can choose to believe it, even though I seem to be a madman, or I can choose to say, well, Gideon thought that the angel was nuts by saying, come on, oh mighty man of valor. And he said, I'm the least of my family, and I'm hiding in a cistern trying to thresh a cupful of grain. Get out there and conquer the enemy. Go forth in the strength of Yahuwah. It's not you, it's Yahuwah through you. And this is the occasion. It's like, wow, we could choose to believe that that's exactly what this is. And if I go forward in that confidence, whether it is or not, I have to go forward with the expectation that we are that people, and the time is now, and this is that messenger that he's allowed to break through. Okay, here we go. Game on. Cowboy up, as they say. Anyway, just a minute or two left. Anybody else got something they want to throw in? Sally, what do you got to say? Anything? Shion? No? Lisa?
It takes
Anybody?
her a second.
Carla?
Just give everybody 1 second.
This is Carla. Sorry, Eric. We're just camera shy, and it's a lot to take in. Not only because of the discovery of the message, but because of the message. Like, could it be that simple? Just do what I said. Just do what I said. You know? It's amazing. And again, like that's what's overwhelming. The fact that it is that simple. Just do what he said. And we're not gonna know what he said except we get into deciphering it, suffering his Aleph Tav. Thank you so much for this.
I'm still seeing his things, the good stuff coming for Israel is optional. Like, I understand everything you're saying, but at the same time, he keeps saying, if you will. It's not when you will, if you will. So it just, I don't know, like we've said, how many of who have to do what for how long. But it seems like we're going to have to, it's going to be a hard lesson to learn, or we're just not going to learn it. And he's just going to shut the door and that's it. What he's got is what he's got.
We are learning it. And this is the, remember at one time he said, and I forget where it is, but he says, man, things are going to be so tough. And he's so irritated and upset with his people that he said, I think the guys were, even if like Noah and Daniel and Joseph were there, they'd save only themselves, not even their children. I mean, it's just, he's so irate with his people for not regarding him. It's like, okay, just let's just regard what he said. It changes everything. It soothes the savage beast. Like he says, I really want to change my disposition and be tender and kind. I really do want to be that guy.
I think everybody on this call is a parent. And maybe you've told your children to not do something repeatedly, and they keep doing it. And it drives you, especially if it's going to hurt themselves, and then you end up running to the hospital because they did exactly what you told them not to do, and so I don't think he's any different with us, but all right, well, I'll close out in prayer, and just before I do, just thank everybody who keeps showing up every week.
Yes, thank you.
It was just the three of us, Mark, myself, and Eric at the beginning, and now on average there's a lot of people, and a lot of people watch this, and you're sharing and making comments. And we sure do appreciate it. It just builds that community. So thank you for being a part of our journey.
There's a pool of energy. Everybody, just even if you're listening, if you're paying attention, I talked about this a couple of years ago, a guy named Richard Bartlett, I think, and there's another guy, anyway, a Christian guy, but he was saying that even if you read a book that somebody has written, it has to do with quantum physics, but there's like this pool of energy regarding a subject that they've been able to classify and quantify and identify. The more people, or the people who put in what value of energy, of attention to a subject, changes, adds to how anyone else will get something out of that subject. It's quantum physics. It's a reality. It's determinable. And it's like, really? So the fact that we've been doing this for 2 years, if somebody were to look at the subject now or read a book about it now, not that one exists, but, or if they had done it 10 years ago, they're going to get a different energy. They'll get a different ruach imparted to them because of what's been put into this. It's a strange thing to consider, but apparently it's a true way the world is built. So all of you who are just listening, thinking, turning your head in this direction to contemplate whether it's right or wrong or in a phase of development, it contributes to what is happening. And if this really is what Yahweh promised back there in Malachi and all these other verses of these 12 minor prophets, then this is a happening, growing, thriving, developing event.
Hey, can you hang out for one more second? I got to ask a question. Somebody asked a question on the channel.
Sure.
It's regarding the, we have made the statement that it's not Satan's world, something like that.
The
They
devil
were
being the god of this world.
Yeah, they were responding to that statement.
So you want me to say something about it? Is that what you're saying?
No, they had a question about it. I don't want to paraphrase because it's an exact question. Sorry, my computer's being slow. I wasn't prepared. Probably won't be able to find it now. Probably save it till next week.
Can I say something?
Of course you
Yeah,
can.
go ahead.
Hugo. Sorry you weren't able to do your teaching today.
Oh, you hear?
Gosh, your
Oh,
voice is
no
choppy. Go ahead.
problem. I'm glad. Praise yeah. I mean, hey, sorry. I just want to talk about the consistency of the message. That's it. I mean, praise yeah for that, and then that you can bring it just like the way you bring it. That's amazing. Just this consistency, always the same message. It's not changing. Yah is the same. So, shut up, brother.
Thank you. Yeah, your voice is coming over slow and choppy. Your internet's not up to snuff as it ought to be.
Oh, what is the correct situation for Satan being the god of this world?
The correct situation for Satan being the god of this world. Okay, so let's just use the sentence as structured. God of this world. In Psalms 24, David said, the earth is, in English, the Lord's. Well, that's Yahweh, Zavot. The earth belongs to Yahweh, Zavot. He claims to be Kana, Kufnun He, Shemayim Ve'aretz. The maker, thus the creator, thus the owner and possessor of the heavens and the earth. because
Can
he
you
made
move
them.
to your right just a little bit?
Me?
There you
Okay,
go.
so if Yahweh is the maker, thus the owner and possessor of heaven and earth, because he made them. And when Yahweh says, there are no other Elohim, there's only me. Well, that word Elohim is translated God. So we have on record that the maker of heaven and earth says, I'm the only God, and this place is possessed and owned by me because I made it. Now somebody else comes up and says, somebody else is the God of this world. Well, that's a lie and a lie. They're not a God, and they do not possess or own any jurisdiction of this place. So if they're a double liar, why should I have any regard for anything else about that subject? Yahweh is the Elohim of Israel, Kanashamayim Ve'eretz, end of matter. And then if somebody else says, hey, I'm going to turn it into a doctrine, I'm going to turn it into a teaching, and I'm going to turn it into a fairy tale, I got no time for that. It's a non-issue because it's not true. And then regardless of Paul or Peter, James, or John, or anybody else that might have spun their head in that direction, I don't have to believe it or go along with it. And if preachers get mileage, I don't have to give those preachers any of my attention and time. Because if I want to spend my time comprehending what does it mean that Yahuwah is the Elohim of Israel, what is that Shem? What is that fame, renown, place? The word Shem is here and there. Literally, here and there can be the word Shem. Here a little, there a little, this place. Okay. What is the Shem of Yahuwah? Didn't he say in Malachi 3 that that's what we attend, put our attention to? If we attend to the Shem of Yahuwah as being the only Elohim, owner, thus possessor of heaven and earth, Satan is the God of this world, is a lie, which makes it nothing, which makes it void, which makes it Shin Vav Aleph.
You know, I can think of one instance in the New Testament which Yeshua is being tempted and Satan offers him the kingdoms of the world because they're his to offer. Like, that's his statement. But,
He also said
if he's kind of known that.
So do you
What's
believe?
that? Yeah. No, I'm just saying that that's probably where that mindset comes from.
Hey, guess what? I own Home Depot. Why don't you walk in and take anything you want? Just tell them you're putting it on my tab. You gonna believe that guy?
Surely. It's like the surely Yahuwah hasn't said. Well, I'm going to close out in prayer. I want to thank everybody for making this an option, again, for showing up and watching and paying attention, especially today. But Father, thank you for everybody on this call. Bless and protect them. Keep them safe, and let your word go forward. And thank you for another year together. In whose name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
And the after show begins.